I guess I should say good evening by now. I'm the last one of the presenters today, and hopefully not the least. My topic for my presentation is environmental education through CVI. Well, first of all, I want to just introduce myself a little. My name is Reyyan Zulal Yoney from Kocaeli University. I'm a fourth year ELT student. And I wanted to participate in this project because I've always thought that language shouldn't be confined in a classroom. Like, language is not an end in itself, it's a means to an end. So I wanted to participate in this project and become a better teacher through this so that I can include more things in my classes. So the focus of my project was one of the global goals, specifically goal 12, responsible consumption and production. And this goal has 11 targets, like 11 subtitles, and I chose 2 of them so that I can have more condensed lessons with my students. So the first one is 12.2, sustainable management and use of natural resources. And the second one is 12.5, yes. Okay. The second one is 12.5, substantially reduce waste generation. I specifically chose these 2 targets because they complement each other. Like, one follows the other in the lessons that I planned. And the booklets you have are actually an account of all the things that I did throughout the 7 weeks I had with these students. And let me introduce the context. The context is a high school in Kocaeli, a science high school, and I work with 10th grade students, and their level was B1, like close to B1 and upper A2 maybe. I had 25 students, but the number varied throughout lessons because the students are always active in the school and they have other projects going on and other things that they need to do. Sometimes they were not present in classes. And I had 7 weeks of instruction with these students. The first week was introduction. Like, I went to the school and, oh, it's back, okay. And 2 reasons that I chose this school is for the projects focusing on environment in the school. They have a zero waste project going on. They have the green campus project implemented in the school. They do different activities like every month to contribute to the environment, to have a more sustainable campus. And the other one is content-based approach to English in this school. Like, they were supposed to use math books, but they also have supplementary books, and they usually focus on the content rather than grammar and skills. So this allowed me to have more room to do what I wanted to do in these classes. Why did I choose environmental education? Well, the first reason is the immediacy and urgency of climate action. Like, every day I see the news and there's something about climate. Like, everything changes every day. And this is immediate to my students as well. I know this because I came across this girl many months ago. Do you know her name? She's Swedish. Her name is Greta Thunberg. She is a 16-year-old girl from Sweden, and she has been on a school strike since September. And she decided to go on a school strike because Sweden experienced the hottest summer ever in this August. So she decided that I should do something because the government is not doing anything. And every week on Fridays, she goes to the Swedish parliament, sits outside with this banner, and just protests. And since September, high school students and young people around the world have been doing the same thing. I guess the number reached 1 million by March. Students are not going to schools on Fridays, meeting, and with banners and stuff, they're protesting the governments to take action. So this means that this is a social justice issue for my students and even for myself, because the effects of climate is more apparent more prominent for Generation Z, which means all the people born after 1995. And I was born in 96, so I am a member of Gen Z, so this affects me as well. The objectives of my project were divided into three. The first two are about the first stage of my project. It's raising awareness on ecological footprints and environmental issues, promoting sustainable use of natural resources, promoting a better understanding of waste, and reducing waste production. The first week was introduction. I only went there and explained certain things and why I was there. I told them that I was an assistant teacher. I would come back every week on Fridays to have a lesson with them. I could only have one lesson a week because that was all the students could afford to do, because they had so many lessons going on, so many intense lessons, especially English classes. So I only had one lesson a week. And the first stage was sustainable management and use of natural resources, and I had 3 lessons, 3 weeks of instruction on this. The first week was about ecological footprint, especially. Like, I had content objectives, language objectives, and social justice objectives for every week. And the main focus for this week was ecological footprint. We started off with natural resources. Like, I asked them what kind of natural resources you know, and what we use them for, and how we can use them, like what kind of things we do with them. We came up with lists, and I showed them another list. You can see them throughout the booklet. And then we moved on to ecological footprint. I introduced the natural resources first, because ecological footprint is measured by how many natural resources we use as individuals, like what kind of natural resources we need to sustain the lifestyle we have. So after they calculated their own ecological footprints, like you can see back here, there are some, like 1 gallon is 3.75 liters, because they had to convert these measurements to the measurements they know, so that they can fill in the ecological footprint calculator. After they did it, we checked Ecological Footprint Explorer, and in this one they saw the ecological footprints of countries and who used more natural resources, who used less, and who had more natural resources and more sustainable lifestyles. And even after the lesson, the students actually interacted with this map. It's an interactive map, and they were still interested in when I was leaving the class. The second week was about sustainable use of natural resources again, but this time it was a bit more immediate to the students, because I wanted them to check labels of their clothes. We were going to conduct an activity about ecological footprint. I wanted them to choose one item that they saw in their class, like a clothing item or a water bottle, and I wanted them to check labels and fill in these charts. And before they did this, I showed them mine. Like, I brought a t-shirt and I filled in a concept map. Like, you have the concept maps of students there. I did a concept map of my own, then the students worked in groups of their own concept maps. Like, they all have one item, like this group chose a sweatshirt and one group chose a water bottle. They all worked on their concept maps, and then I wanted them to share, but some students didn't want to share, but one of the groups just came up and shared their concept maps with the others. The others were a little shy, they didn't want to do that. And after this point, I showed them why this is important. And this is a video by Tada, The Life Cycle of a T-shirt, and it explains how something you use in your daily life affects people around the world, like how a t-shirt you bought was made in Bangladesh by people who are working in poor conditions, and how the cotton used for this t-shirt was grown with chemicals that affected the farmers who grew them. And the second video, actually, the videos are not back to back, they're just at different parts of the lesson. This was about how we can make a difference with the things we use. The video showed them ways to use their t-shirts, like after it grew old, how they can use it for a second time, how, for example, turn it into something else, like use it as like cloth rag, like you can use it to clean up some surfaces. And I told them maybe we can make top bags with them. The last lesson on Target 12.2 was about families around the world. These families were real people. They were drawn from the UN's database. It was from a lesson plan by a company. You can see the links in the booklet. And we discussed the impacts of consumerism and commercialism. This lesson was mostly about how the ads we see, how the commercials we see affect the way we act, how they help us make decisions, but not exactly the healthy ones. I guess we have the handouts for them as well. So this is how the lesson started. We had guided discussion. This is from the original lesson plan. We discussed what families need around the world and how they can achieve their lifestyles and the effects of commercialism. We discussed these orally first, and then they moved on to studying the families. This is one of the family profiles that we used. There were 6 of them, and we had 6 groups. And these were the questions they were supposed to answer. After they answered these questions, I made all the groups share their answers with the others because I really needed them to talk because they were not interested in talking during the class. They shared their answers and we discussed these. I had the chance to have 2 back-to-back classes during this week, so it was really effective for me. And then we moved on to the second stage of the project. It is about substantially reduced waste generation. And the first week of this was actually not an English lesson, but I invited an environmental engineer to the class so that she can give information about environment to the students. And this session was carried out in Turkish. The objectives of this lesson was providing an outline of what waste is, because students don't really have an idea about it, and the types of waste. I needed this at the beginning of the second stage because I was going to talk about these in the following lessons, and I needed the students to have the preliminary knowledge necessary for the lessons. For example, if I said radioactive waste, they should understand that it's about the phones, laptops, and other electronic things that we use. So this is the session with the environmental engineer. She is knowledgeable in this area because she had practicums, like internships in İzaydaş, which is the waste management factory located in Izmit, and İSO, which is water and sewage administration in Kocaeli. So she had experience in these places, and she actually told them stories about the things that they did. For example, the hardest thing you can extract from water is paint. Any kind of paint, the paint in your clothes, the paint in the water bottles, everything. Any kind of paint is so hard to extract from water to clean it up. The second lesson focused on the waste we produced, how much waste we produce, and the relativity of the impacts of waste production. So we started off, can you read this? This is a counter, actually. You can find the link. This is theworldcounts.com. The number presented here is the waste produced so far in 2019 globally. And we left this open because it's a live counter, and at the end of the lesson, we saw that in 30 minutes we had like 30 to 40 100 100,000 tons of waste production. Like in 30 minutes, they saw that that number grew that much. See, actually it's more than 30. I guess it's 80 or 90,000 or something. And then we carried out another activity. I tried to prepare my worksheets as much as possible, and one of the activities that we carried out in this lesson was the impacts of waste production, like how the waste produced affect them. Like I wanted them to rank 10 impacts of waste from immediate to remote. And by immediate to remote, I told them you can either do this by how you feel, like if this affects you from immediate to remote, or how fast this happens in reality, like how fast one impact happens than the other one. And I was inspired by an activity carried out by Wang. He did this related to the activity theory. He wanted to see how two different groups would rank the impacts of TV viewing, like the health effects of this. And the two groups came up with two different rankings, but the students in my class came up with pretty close rankings because they all thought that they should rank them according to how immediate they are to themselves. And the first thing that they ranked is the effects of the fumes and gases that the factories release to the air. Have you ever been to Kocaeli? Do you know anything about Kocaeli? Kocaeli is the industrial center of Turkey. Like everywhere from north to south, east to west, you can see factories everywhere. And the number one issue in the city is air pollution. So the students immediately thought that this should be the first one in their list. And my final lesson was about zero waste. Now, I told you that there was a zero waste project going on, but in the 5th week with the environmental engineer, she told them something about zero waste, and they were confused, and I said, well, in a second, do you know anything about zero waste? Do you have a project going on here? They said, nope. One day, they just came to school. They no longer had trash cans. They just had zero waste bins. That's all they had. No one made any explanations. They had no idea what was going on. That's why I came up with this lesson plan. So first, we discussed what zero waste was. Again, we had worksheets in this week. And then we came up with ways in which we can reduce our waste. They provided some suggestions, and then I introduced them some keywords about a video they were going to watch. So in this one, they matched definitions with some terms, and we discussed these after the video that we watched here. And I asked them how this woman here, Catherine Kellogg, came up with ways to reduce her waste. She was living a zero waste lifestyle, and she set some examples in her video. This was a news report. And then I asked them how she did this and how we can use these in our lives and how often we should do these. And at the end of the lesson, as a way to end this project, I came up with a survey. I asked them some questions. This is how it looked like, and I have some of the results here. Like, there was a statement that said, I am willing to change my actions to have a more sustainable lifestyles. 9 of the 10 students present in the class agreed to this. Now, I told you that some of the students were missing from some classes. I normally had 25 students, but only 10 of them were present in this class. So I'm not sure about the efficiency of this survey, but this was the result that I got from those students. And 7 out of 10 students agreed in varying levels. I have made some changes to my actions in my daily life to have a more sustainable lifestyle. And if you check the surveys, you can see their answers. So most of them were either optimistic or happy about this project, happy about taking part in this lesson. But not all of them. Like one student said in this open-ended question, to be honest, I don't think that this classes can change everything. It's not about the teacher, not about the classes, it's all about people. When people want to change, something can change. A few people can't do anything because we are still not the majority. If governments won't do anything for this, there will be still no effect. And this comes back to Greta again. This is what Greta wanted, and this is what the students here might as well want from the governments as well. But as a way to have a longer effect after I leave the school, we had a session where they can do what they can do in this school to have a more sustainable life at their school. These are the suggestions that the students came up with, like using second quality paper, buying solar panels to generate their own energy, using second quality toilet paper, and maybe bring their own toilet paper so that people wouldn't use so much toilet paper, and automatic water faucets. When possible, using e-files, because students always use like books, handouts, and so many things, and if we can use e-files, maybe we can have less paper waste in classes. And one of the things that I found weird in the school is that the students were not allowed to use electronics. Like they were not allowed to have their phones, they were not allowed to use them. Like I understand they were distracted from lessons at times, but I wanted them to research something. I wanted them to look something up, and they all looked at me confused, like, are we going to use our phones? Should we use our phones? I said, yes, you should use your phones. We're not allowed to do that, but in time they got used to it. Like they knew they were allowed to use their phones in my lesson, and I can say the majority didn't manipulate that. They actually used their phones to contribute to the lesson. And at the end, I can say that I'm satisfied with this because I know that some of the students were really interested in this, and some even said, like, thank you for coming here, thank you for doing this, and I would like to thank you all for giving me this opportunity. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, by the way, and such an important topic. Have you had a chance to share this with some of your classmates at university as well?
Well, some of my classmates know this, but I didn't make a presentation like this to them. Like they know I'm carrying out this thing, and they know that I have lesson plans. I show them some of them, but they actually kind of know that I'm doing something about social justice education because we have a class on using technology in English lessons, and we are supposed to build websites, and I'm building a website on social justice education and how teachers can incorporate social justice issues into their lessons. Like I use map books, and I choose which units and where to incorporate these issues, which issues to use in their lessons, and I prepare lesson plans. It's a work in progress, but some of my friends know that, and hopefully they will use it in the future. Because it's new. It has been going on since March. Yes?
So I have two questions. The first one's very basic. I just briefly looked at the packet. Did you write all of the lesson plans for all of this?
Anything that doesn't have a disclaimer is written by me.
So first, I'm just very impressed with all the work that you did. That must have taken so much time, and you put things together in such an interesting way that felt very current. And I'm wondering, so you had to do this on a smaller scale where you only got to run once a week. You probably weren't able to get this involved with maybe their bigger assessments. Mm-hmm. If you could do this on a bigger scale and you could have them do more of a bigger project or something, if you don't have any ideas, that's okay. But do you have ideas for how you might expand this and bring it more into their curriculum?
Well, the first time that I went there, I actually wanted to have all the classes from the 10th or 9th grade. Like, I had time for that, but the school said they can't provide that for me. But if I had the chance, I would have definitely wanted them to include this in their examinations, maybe, their assessments, because some of the students were discouraged to do things in class because they knew they were not going to get marks from that one. So that could have been really good for my project as well. Yes.
Yeah, I guess I'm sort of wondering, taking this into the future, if you're working full time at a state school, to what extent do you think you'll be able to make use of the things that you're doing in that environment?
Yeah, that's why I actually came up with the website, because I check all the curriculums from 5th grade to 8th grade. Like for the moment, I'm focused on middle school, and I look at what point in math books we can incorporate which issue, so that I can have an impact at that point. But the thing is, I did that for other teachers so that they can have an idea about what to do in their classes, to have social justice based classes. Any other questions? Yes?
As far as I understand, you spend 6 class hours.
Like 7 with the introduction.
7.
8 hours, but 7 weeks, because I had chance to have 2 back-to-back lessons in week 4, I guess. So I had 8 lessons, 7 weeks, and 6 of them focused on my project, 3 for stage 1 and 3 for stage 2.
Science high school.
Yes.
So I assume that students are interested in this one.
They were, because they already had things going on campus. But as I said, not all of them were informed about things. Not in English, yes. Not in English
However, they are
classes.
interested in environment.
Yes. One of the students came up to me after the introduction lesson, like she held on to my arm and said, "You're coming back, right? You're gonna come back." I said, "Yes, I'm going to come back here." They were interested in this.
Okay. So you spent 8 class hours.
Yes.
How many hours a week do they have?
4.
4.
Yes.
So it means 2 weeks.
Yes.
Do you think, let's say, you can apply the same lesson plans to the class in a row for 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's doable actually.
Or is it possible to do everything in 2 weeks, or is it better to apply these lesson plans for 2 months?
Well, mine lasted 2 months, actually more than 2 months, because they were breaks. Like they had exam weeks, so we didn't have classes. And I think having lessons like once a week, twice a week had a better impact, because they knew that this was going to go on. If this lasted for 2 weeks, I don't think I would have had the same impact on the students. Yeah. Thank you.
I
Yes?
have a question. How is environmental education related to social justice?
Well, I explained at the beginning that the climate change, actually climate breakdown, is something so immediate to the generations after us, the generation after me as well. And the students that are actually demanding the government to take action, but they don't actually know how to take action on their own. And the project that I produced was focusing on how we can have impact on the environment with our daily actions. And if we can have action in our daily lives, if we can have an impact on the environment, maybe we can help others to have an impact on the environment as well. Because just demanding the government to take action doesn't help anything. You remember the students that said the government should do something, that we can't have any impact on the environment? I looked at his survey and I saw that he didn't take action himself either. Like he answered the questions with different degrees of disagreement. If he doesn't take action, he shouldn't expect others to take action either. Yes.
Building on what you said, we are not the only creators in the world. We share this world with other creators.
Yes.
So we have responsibility towards
Mhm.
each other. That means social justice. Social should be fair to other creative creators as well. To save the world, to save the world. How would that be consistent?
And I try to incorporate things in how we affect other people. Like the lesson on the concept maps, it included information on how farmers and producers and other people were affected during the process of producing a t-shirt. Like the workers in Bangladesh, the farmers in India, and they saw videos of this, there were news about it, and we always talked about how we affect the other people, the other creatures around the world. We always try to do this. Yes.
And I think another way, I mean, I'm sure you didn't have time for that this time, but it's just that more disadvantaged people are probably the most likely to be affected right away by these kinds of issues. So that seems like a very clear kind of connection to other social justice issues.
If there aren't any other questions? Yes. Thank you.